Hello again, friend. I have always loved this quote from Mark Twain. He said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed in the things you didn't do than the things you did. But that takes courage, and I might fail, and that's embarrassing. Others may judge or think less of me. And that's why we so often disappoint ourselves by not trying or by limiting ourselves. Either the last few years feel like a big setup for failure of our careers, our businesses, our relationships, our parenting, our finances, our health, or it's been the biggest setup for our next success and personal or professional breakthrough. But only if we can leverage the flip side of failing. On today's episode, I talk with gal pal Sarah McVanel, author of Flip Side of Failing: How Unconditional Recognition Ignites Resilience, Relationships, and Retention. Oh, she is talking our language. Sarah is one of those people that always leaves me feeling so much more energized than I was right before that. I can't wait for you to hear insights and inspiration about how to flip the chip of failure into something that propels you to bust past your limitations and try something new to create the career, business, or life you want. By the way, I always ask my gal pal to take my quick quiz to determine their nail color persona and what their favorite nail color reveals about them. It's really a fun way to get to know them before we dive into our conversation. You can take the What's My Nail Color Persona quiz too. You just go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Or you can use my handy shortcut, mynailcolorpersona.com. You answer 3 quick questions, and in your results, discover your specific nail color persona, your built-in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when ship happens. Again, go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now, let's get talking with Sarah.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. It's great to be with you again. So let's talk about failure, shall we? Sounds like such a good time. Either we treat failure like the other F word, or we seem to be espousing its virtues for learning. That still hurts, that learning. Well, when failure comes crashing into our lives, it's hard to be resilient. And yet failure will happen at some point simply because we're imperfect humans who only get better by doing, which can lead to stumbling, which can lead to falling on our face, which can lead to feeling embarrassed or full of shame. Well, imagine if you knew how to flip failure into confidence. Consider what your life would really feel like if you became more failure resilient. What might that do for your relationships, your business, your careers, yourself? If you knew how to flip the chip of failure, what would you go after right now? What new experience or adventure would you pursue? Give that some real thought, because today's gal pal is going to share a practical approach to failure that you've never heard of until now. Her name is Sarah McVanel, founder of Greatness Magnified, where she invigorates individuals, teams, and companies to see themselves and others as exceptional, so that together they can create a sumptuous, thriving culture where everyone belongs. Wherever that is, that's where I want to work, okay, and be a part of, just so you know. She's a recognition expert, a professional speaker, coach, recovering perfectionist, movement maker, and author of several books, including Flip Side of Failing: How Unconditional Recognition Ignites Resilience, Relationships, and Retention. I mean, if that isn't a great example of flipping the chip, I don't know what is, but we're getting into it. Sarah, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thank you, Mary. Happy to be colorfully here with you.
I appreciate that. Yes, colorful is so true.
I'm Canadian though, so it's got a U. Colorfully with you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And there is greatness in the Great White North, right? As they call that, right? I appreciate that. Well, in fact, speaking of color, and speaking of nail color in particular, before the podcast, I asked you to take the quiz that I created called "What is your nail color persona?" So I want to know, what did it reveal about you? What's your persona, and did it nail you?
I'm curious if you had to take a guess, knowing what you know about me. Which persona do you think it would have been?
Well, so I do know you a little bit. So, but here's the thing, as a speaker in particular, you're in front of audiences, you're very focused on being colorful, right? I mean, who wants to watch a gray clad speaker? Let's just face it, right? So you have these great orange and blues and, some green that you wear and such. But I don't necessarily see that on your fingernails. So that is, I don't know. I mean, I'm what did the quiz say?
Yeah, I'm a Naked Nelly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I don't know if everyone would guess that. If they've seen me on stage, I wear these funky, colorful boots created by this designer called Zayzani. I wear desigual, which is known for maybe black backgrounds, but then pops of like jazzy prints and so you bring, as you say, like a lot of energy and cool concepts and hopefully sticky words and phrases that people are going to remember and be motivated to do something with later. But I got to tell you, when all of that is done, it's not that that's a ruse. It's just, I think I'm a Naked Nelly down to the core. Just know me. I'm an open book. And my environment here in wine country, where we live on the water, there is nothing I like better than to be without makeup, in a kayak, at the front with my husband in the back, tandem kayak, therefore he can do all the work. And that's just me, my friend, like just Naked Nelly.
I love it. I love it. And it, I think it also just shows that you can be a Naked Nelly in your nail color persona, which is really the core of you're authentic and you're open, just like you had said. And yet wear colorful things. Naked Nelly is not boring. All right. And, it's really not that. Now, I like to always share with people, and you may not have heard me say this yet, but there is a difference between naked and naked. Did you know that?
No, tell me what this is.
So naked is you don't have anything on your nails, right? Naked is you don't have anything on and you're up to something.
Oh,
I love that.
What if I want to be naked then? Now
you can go from naked to naked in a nanosecond. And if you want to switch back again, you see, so, that's the playfulness that you get to do. And you are a very playful person, really about energy of life, right? And about enjoying that. So I know that therefore your fave go-to color is, well, no color at all, right? It's being naked and such. And I love the meaning that gets attributed to the Naked Nelly and just the color. It says having naked nails reveals that you're not afraid to be your true authentic self and show it to the world, right? Because it's particularly on your fingernails, it's out there for people to see. You are modest, real, and sensible. Others find you soothing and supportive. Do you think that describes you?
Well, 100%. I'm a recognition expert. So I'm always professing that people need to see. So forever recognize that there's greatness. We need to frog other people. There's a little bit of vulnerability and humility there that comes with being willing to go out in public and say, hey, I want to frog you. Because, people look at you real funny. But really, that's about just being real. Like, hey, I see something amazing in you and I'm going to tell you, and not needing them to have a particular type of reaction. This is who I am. I just want to make sure that you're out there in the world doing awesome things. And related to failure, sometimes people don't always say, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's so great." Sometimes people are very uncomfortable
Yeah.
having a compliment, or
Yeah.
they may not
True.
see themselves that way. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, others finding you supportive, I think it's absolutely huge. And by the
Mm.
way, frog, do a really quick understanding of frog. I know what frog stands for, and I know you said it, but
Yeah.
I know it's your acronym, FROG, for you share.
Forever recognize others' greatness.
Forever
So,
recognize others' greatness. Boy, you know
yeah,
what?
it's
It's
the
the
supportive
forever
part.
part. That's the
Yes.
part that's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that's where the unconditional part of recognition when it comes to failure is so important, because it's easy to recognize people when things are going well, when we're happy, when our performance targets are high. What happens when you're having an off day, when you don't get along with somebody, when you're struggling, when you're worried that the performance is slipping? We're coming
You
on
lose
to
a bunch of
some,
clients, if you're an
yeah,
entrepreneur and small business owner, and you're like, oh, yeah, that was a great day. I just lost, two of my biggest clients.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So what the ability to flip failure is actually hardwiring in success. It seems so counterintuitive.
Mm,
However, how do we possibly have a successful business if we're constantly running away from failure?
yeah. Yeah. But boy, well, so let's get into that conversation
Okay,
about failure.
let's do it.
Yeah, I know it's so fun and motivating, but it really is an important topic and one we typically don't talk about, which is why I love that you wrote a book about it and really brought it up more to the surface. Because the reality is that the last few years has in some ways felt like a big setup for failure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
failure in our careers, failure in our businesses, our relationships, our parenting, having kids at home, our finances, our health. I mean, we could go on, but that's at least major areas of our life. And our Western culture doesn't like failure. We
Mhm.
like success. And that's what we focus on. But who hasn't experienced the feeling, let alone the public evidence, like you were saying, of failure? I mean, we beat ourselves up and we cover it up or we minimize it. We judge others as well when they, have a failure. And yet, of course, we have our own failures. So I guess one of the biggest things right off is, why do we resist failure? Even when, like you said, it's really can lead to greatness. And I'm like,
Mhm.
doesn't feel that way. But
Yeah.
culture, why do we resist it?
Failure has a terrible PR agency, first of all.
Yeah, really. They need to get on that. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what their nail color would be, but it's not something anybody would
Probably
pick. That's
called a
for
hot
sure.
mess, is what it is.
Hot mess. Hot mess. It may sound like a good nail color, but nobody would pick it. It'd sit there on the shelf and get real crusty. And the definition of failure is all about lack of success and inability to achieve expected outcomes. So who would sign up for that? No, we want to be able to buy the how-to books and do through the 7 steps, and we Instagram filter our persona to the world. And so there doesn't really seem to be a lot of context in which failure is invited. If you've got entrepreneurs listening to this podcast who've come out of the corporate world, I'm willing to bet there aren't a lot of scars people are wearing from the failure, whether it be perceived failure from being downsized or fired, even if it was the best thing that could have ever happened to them, because it allowed them to be brave enough to start their own business, and now they're happier. And yet we wear those failures as cautionary tales. Be careful, don't let it happen again. Even if cerebrally we know it's a good thing, our limbic system has attached the memory that that is dangerous, that is not good. So we can think our way into believing failure. Yeah, okay, I can see the merit. Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't get here if it weren't for that. However, how many of us, me included, I'm sure you too, Mary, can say, oh, yeah, absolute failure, bring it on. I will experience it all day and night.
Yeah, no way. No way. I mean, there's a phrase, failure way to success. I'm like, that's really not the plan I was going for. Okay. I'm really going for that. I'd like to be more successful. And I think the biggest thing for me is that it hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, it just hurts personally. I know I'm very achievement oriented, so I don't, achieve something or what I was aspiring to. It hurts. And I remember realizing, I don't know how old I was, but I was in my at least in my late 20s. And I went, I want to keep growing. I want to keep experiencing new things for my career and in my personal life. And I want to feel competent, right? I want to feel
Yes.
good at what I do and therefore i.e. successful and know how to handle things. I was like, but I can't. Every time I want to do something new or aspire to the next role or grow in some way, I'm back at the beginning of opening myself up to stumbling and falling on my face and not feeling competent and therefore potentially, failure. So I remember going like, this is a conundrum. I have got to just start to embrace that always a process. That being said, I still don't like it. Okay. Or
Mhm.
I want to avoid hurt. And then that's how I feel. But then it's like, who wants to go out and just put it up on the, Instagram or whatever, or Facebook? I failed, like, and because there's very little in our Western culture that will affirm that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just seem like losers. So I'm wondering, what is failure really? If we reframed it and redefined it, that may start the shift and to flip it.
Yes. So FLIP stands for fail, learn, ignite, and praise. That's what the FLIP stands for in my world anyway. And I invite anyone who's listening to see how that resonates for them. Because we talk a lot about, as you said earlier, the learning part. Fail your way to success. I'm gonna have something to learn and I can grow through this and this is going to allow me to evolve. However, to your point, and we can all agree that it doesn't feel very good. That's where the ignite part is so important. Where do you now have table stakes? Where are you passionate? How does this matter to you? How does this matter to you more than your fragile ego and the emotion of this situation? How has it taught you something that now you cannot unknow about yourself, about your environment, about relationships, about your community? And then the praise, that's where the unconditional recognition comes in because you have to be willing to see the greatness in yourself and other people when it may not be popular, when it may be off message, when there isn't a path that you and others have taken to be able to achieve this. It can be very uncomfortable to have those kinds of conversations to say, no, you know what? I define success this way now. We're seeing that in the Great Resignation, where people are saying, you know what? I actually don't believe becoming the CEO or in the C-suite is what success means to me anymore. No, I would rather have a better lifestyle. People are leaving nursing and they're reducing their hours as a physician from a burnout standpoint. I cannot make myself sick in the act of service. We see so many people, and I'm sure that your listeners are among them, where they have chosen deliberately to leave the quote safe job. Whether it was actually safe or not, I think we can all say is up for debate. Lots of people furloughed. So we all know that a job and a salary isn't necessarily always safe. However, we've been fed a line that work is a safer option than entrepreneurship. And we are embarking upon new territory. We may not have any roadmap or mentors or guideposts to be able to help us see what does success look like as an entrepreneur. However, when you're so excited about what you do, whether that is Reiki and yoga to book writing to helping as a life coach, all of a sudden that becomes more important than if you pay off your mortgage in 12 years or 14 years. You're going to pay it off. At the end of your life, will you say, oh, I'm so glad that I stayed in that role that really was sucking my soul so I could pay my mortgage off 2 years earlier? That was definitely the good call. So we almost need to reverse it, right? We need to look, I'm sure you do this with your clients all the time, right, Mary, is put yourself in the future as if you were looking back now saying, wow, I'm so glad I bravely fill in the blank.
Yeah.
What would be different? And there will likely be failure and discomfort in that journey to wherever you want to be.
Well, I love all of this. And when you were saying under the flip, right? FLIP and I is ignite. And you said, what matters more than the pain? And I thought, oh, that is so good. Just so good. One of the things I was thinking about in failure for me years ago when I was going through that time I was sharing before about I got to always be competent. I always got to be competent.
Mhm.
I said, my definition of failure needs to change. And so I came up with my own personal definition that I've tried to keep to.
Okay, let's hear it.
Failure is simply not trying.
Oh, yes.
I could live with myself if I tried, and maybe it didn't turn out as well as I thought, or maybe I didn't really like that thing I was pursuing after all, or experience. But if I didn't try that and I didn't even make an attempt, to me that was true failure. Because it
Yes.
was saying I let fear hold me back from living.
Mm. I love the try. So the acronym I just came up with in my head when you were talking is try is truth, recognition, yes. So you have to know your truth. You have to know what's important to you. You have to recognize the gifts, the strengths, the assets, the resources you already have available and believe in them. And then the yes is then you have to do it. You have to say, yes, I choose to opt in. And I think what's so yummy about that new definition that you have, and then that new try formula that we just came up with in this podcast.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. You can have it. I'll have Flip Side of Failing. You'll have the book Try, and we will meet in the middle, and then we will co-author a book. Yeah. Yeah. The Try the Flip. The heart of what I pulled, so thank you for that gift of sharing your new definition, is that it requires a bet on yourself. And I would be willing to bet, and I fall into this camp, and I'm working very hard not to stay in this camp, that we believe that believing in ourselves and betting on ourselves is riskier than betting on an employer, relationship, a friend, an educational pursuit. However, what do you know better than anything else? That point around competence, we are more competently knowing of ourselves. We talk a lot about self-awareness, need to increase self-awareness. You're still more self-aware and more aware of who you are and what you need than anything else in the world. So why wouldn't you try with yourself?
Wow. Oh, yeah. Why do we want not to bet on, why do we hesitate to bet on ourselves more than something external? Yeah.
Mary, I will tell you an example, and it's something that I didn't even think about sharing on this podcast, but I'm going to just be super vulnerable because Mary, you just
You're a
bring
naked
out
Nelly.
that
That's why.
I'm naked Nelly. Okay, get naked. Not naked.
Yeah, not
Although
naked.
maybe I will. Who knows? Yeah, I'm going to get naked with you for a second.
Naked, and we'll see where there goes to naked.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I had a belief for so many years that I couldn't learn another language, that I had a quote ideal weight, and that I would likely never be able to make a certain speaking fee. I don't know where those things came up in my head. COVID hits and my whole speaking business falls apart. Everything is canceled, and we don't know when it's going to be reopened.
Right.
The whole thing. And then I'm thinking, do I even have any business anymore? So that was the obvious failure. However, as we're reinventing with your delicious definition, I realized that it was more comfortable for me to try in reinventing the business arena. And I tried a lot of things and I failed at a lot of things. However, probably 10 different things I tried and 3 worked. So the 3 that were successful was better than the one that I could have got perfect, and it would have been a sure bet. So there was that. What's happening in the background though? I was realizing that by doing that, and having 3 successes of things that I didn't know how to do, but the stakes were so low. I mean, everything was canceled. Yeah, so it's right. Not like I had much to lose. I already lost it, all that business, not knowing when it's coming back. And when there were successes that I never could have anticipated, I thought, what else am I hiding from trying? And weight was one of them. Learning another language was another one. So sure enough, I decide, well, let's test this theory. What would it look like if I lost 5 pounds? Walk a little bit more, be more conscious of my eating, And sure enough, was able to drop dress sizes. And I was so afraid to set the goal because of two things. Number one is, what does that say about me if I set that goal? Am I, quote, vain? Am I want it? What if, and then B, what if I fail?
Yeah.
What if I can't do it? So much easier to stay safe. Same with like trying to learn another language or pick dance back up or learn how to hip hop, things that I've explored since writing this book. And I think, wow, but I love those things. I actually am really enjoying learning Spanish using an app. And I actually think I may be able to speak it, not with a very nice accent, mind you. However, that's not what success look like. Success does not mean I can sound like Jennifer Lopez or dance like her. It's that I've proven to myself that I can do something that I never thought possible. And the amazing thing about being willing to fail is that you have more successes. And when you have that success, however small or large, defined by other people, your body, your brain doesn't know the difference between excited or anxious. It's the same thing that's happening in there. So now you get a chance to be excited rather than anxious. And you're like, what else do I want to be excited about?
Right.
Next thing, you just go for the next thing. So we have to build failure like a muscle. We have to build excitement into being incompetent at something. And that's where we can find parts of ourselves that we have closed off and it's who knows why it's closed off, but we get a chance to actually start finding things that matter to us. We just have to throw out all kinds of shackles of external expectations to get right in there into the meaty middle of our hearts.
Well, I love that you shared such a very practical and honest, Naked, three areas of your life that really came up for you, particularly in the last couple of years when this shutdown happened. And because you were probably so used to thinking those three things.
Yes.
It's the maximum I'm going to ever get paid, as a speaker. I can't learn a foreign language, and here's my ideal weight, and that's just the number I have to always keep to, right? And it can't be less than that. That's just it. How many of us, myself included, I go, what are the things that I've just been saying to myself again and again and again, which are absolutes, are absolutely true. I can and I cannot. And I think sometimes I listen to, you overhear teenagers sometimes, and, they're just getting to understand who they are, right? But particularly girls, and they go in packs. And they go around the stores, and you might be on one aisle and then they're on another aisle, but they like to talk, and you can't help but overhear them. And I often will hear, well, I never this, or I can't do that. And there are these big absolutes. And I was like, why are you putting, such limiters on yourself already, kind of a thing? And of course, I realize in part of it is they're just trying to get to know each other. And perhaps, though, the biggest thing is they're not aware that they're saying things to themselves of their limitations, because they probably just don't want to look foolish.
Yeah, they're trying to live small enough so that they're not called out as you're a fake,
right? Or you're a failure, or you're stupid, or, look at that, right? So let's face it, being a teenager is not exactly generally the best environment to expose yourself and kind of stumble around. And yet it's the exact environment where you're doing that. But anyway, but even, as adults with many decades in on this earth, we know it's not going to be easy. We know we've all overcome some challenges, or at least had some things we had to face, like that. But I love how it seems to me, and I'm going to get this, if I get this straight, clarify for me, because I was thinking about, how do we give ourselves permission to fail? And I'm hearing that part of that is you recognize where the limiters were, and that what you were scared of actually failing at, right? So therefore you put some limiters on. And what you flipped, it seems, is that you went from anxious to excited. And that you asked yourself some question. Well, what if I was able to speak Spanish fluently? Well, okay, yeah, with a Canadian accent, but whatever. What if I can learn how to speak another language? What if I lost just 5 pounds?
Yeah.
And you then flipped it into that what if, and then focused on the excitement of it. Did I get that right? Is that what you did?
Yes. Yes. And in fact, in the flip side of failing keynote that I do, I teach people how to hip hop, not a whole performance, 6 steps.
Okay.
And okay. That's the way some people, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Like 6 steps. I can handle 6 steps probably.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
But you know what? And because everybody's doing it together, it doesn't feel like a colossal failure. Right. Imagine if I asked one person to come up and do that in front of me. And that's what I think a lot of us, how we experience that is I feel like everybody's looking at me. Yeah. What if I can't do it? I'm going to be a failure in front of everyone. So surround yourself with failure resilient people who get this as part of the deal. That's where, you and your community, when you're coaching, how it's so powerful because you find comfort and psychological safety amongst the struggle of entrepreneurship, womanpreneurship. And a great example of that, and I love how you were talking about the teenagers. I forced my daughter to fail this summer.
Ooh,
I forced her to fail. She's 17 years old. She's highly perfectionistic. She is smart. She wants to be a human rights lawyer, a psychologist, or a prime minister of Canada. She's going to set the world on fire, and she's got very strong opinions about it. So I thought, this girl needs some opportunity here to experience something that's not middle class Southwestern Ontario. So she went on Rotary Exchange. She had 1 month to fill out the application, get all the paperwork together. When we made her do it herself, you do it yourself and you submit it. And let's see if it's good enough to get accepted. And she went with less than a month. She did not have a chance to learn Spanish. She does not like public speaking. That is part of the deal. You have to create a speech and deliver it to a group of professionals in another country. She's very shy. She has to meet people. Oh, wow. First day she was there, they took her from classroom to classroom and she had to meet people. Do you know what happened on day 2, Mary? Ask me what happened on day 2, Mary.
What happened on day 2, Mary?
She is sitting at the front of the class, the music class, playing the only 2 songs she knows on guitar for the music class. This girl who cannot speak a word of Spanish other than hola and gracias is playing the only 2 songs she knows. Ask me if she has ever played those 2 songs, even for a girlfriend, let alone at school.
Oh my gosh. And music's another language, right? It's a universal language.
It's another language. And guess what? She's in an environment where everybody expects that she's going to fail. She doesn't speak the language. She just arrived yesterday. She has no idea about our culture. Hey, she officially has the bar that's so low that the definition of success in that school does not even exist for her. So now she can play guitar in front of all these perfect strangers because she doesn't feel judged. So isn't that ironic that in the most uncomfortable situation that she's ever been in, she could be the bravest and most comfortable to be her?
Yeah. Wow. There's so much in that. I love one of the things she said, that she set the bar, or the others were set. Anyway, the bar was set so low. And I mean, maybe that's a key too. We set such a high bar that, particularly if, hey, look at all the accomplishment of things we've done in our jobs and in our personal lives. And, I did a 100-mile bike ride and I'm like, of course. And then why would I not set a high bar? Right. And yet, what if I lowered that bar for something totally new and define success as, well, it's like trusting myself, and let's recognize one thing and take the first step. Wow. Exactly. Oh my gosh.
And who do you dedicate that trying to? Because that was, I'm just discovering in this conversation. So thank you so much for being a guest on your podcast, because I always learn so much when we speak. So thank you, Mary. I actually think that part of why I've been able to be so persistent with Spanish is I figure if she can go to another country and be surrounded in that language, the least that I can do is try to do a few lessons. What's the worst that happens? I don't get advanced to the next level. So that's the benefit of seeing other people's failures and it being very honest, as opposed to us all trying to be perfectionistic and constantly struggling and challenging each other and always having goals. What if in fact we're like, fail, fail, fail? How could we brag on our failures? And that is now the quest that we're on together. Who could have the biggest oops? Who could have the biggest failure in their business? Who could push the boundaries with what is possible creatively or relationship wise? And I don't mean unhealthy stuff. There's lots of things that are incredibly unhealthy, but that we in fact are constrained by limits. So what if in fact we looked at the people around us and we dedicate a failure to them? Your grandmother who never had an opportunity to go to school, and you think, you know what? I've always wanted to do my MBA. I'm doing it for her. So now there is no failure because you're doing this because your grandmother couldn't. I'm learning another language because my daughter is in an environment that's way harder to communicate than me learning on an app. And for somebody else, like, it's going to look different too. So who are you dedicating your failures to? And that's what ignites you. And that is where the unconditional recognition can come in, because if that person were in the room with you, whether they're still alive or they're not alive anymore, they would say, I believe in you. Or they might even say, thank you. Thank you for making my dream or something I never thought would be possible a reality. And now it has an entirely different why behind it.
Yeah. Wow. I never ever thought of dedicating, and you're calling it failure, but basically dedicating, going for something, doing something new to someone else. So all of a sudden, that takes the focus off of me and how well I do it or don't, how well I don't do it. And that it takes the focus off of that to why I'm doing it for this other person, which, by the way, would free me up so much more. That'd probably do a lot better than if I focused on me too much. Yeah. Wow. That's a powerful shift. Now, I want to understand a little bit more what you mean by unconditional recognition, and can we give that to ourselves as well?
Oh, I would hope. The person that we probably need to give it to most is ourselves. And I know that sounds a bit pop psychology. So let's get very concrete. If you are waiting for somebody else to acknowledge something as being successful, that you've arrived, what achievement looks like, that's not unconditional self-recognition. Unconditional recognition is where you don't need an external lens to determine what does success look like. That it's not performance-based, goals-based, extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation. So what we genuinely feel is worthy, is valuable, what gets us up out of bed, what makes us do things that seem impossible. That is how you can attach unconditional recognition to the things that matter most. Because if it is not based on I am successful if, it's that binary kind of concept that you talked about, right? Is the bar is so high, it's only successful if I reach the bar.
Right.
It's successful, yes or no. Those are very conditional. So unconditional recognition allows you to notice the progress. It's not outcome based, it's progress based. And the ironic thing is, we actually know this is more successful in a business context too, because when we continuously improve, it's about small tests of change. And that's what we recognize and notice. So we need to turn that inwards. And we also have to look at that in our business. And the ironic thing is, I'm sure we both experienced, is the more we are willing to do that in our business, the more likely it happens internally. The more it happens internally, the more it happens in our business. Mm-hmm. So that's where unconditional recognition helps build failure resiliency muscles, because now we're willing to try things and we're willing to believe possibilities because we've noticed how many conditions we have and how many limitations we see all around us.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And that it reinforces itself in a positive way. This progress, not perfection, was the phrase that came to my mind as you were just sharing about that. It's very practical and it seems so doable. I love that. I just see it's, and realistic to life, everyday life.
Yeah.
Whether it's in our businesses, whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's in our health, whether it's in our relationships. there's progress that can be made.
Yeah.
And, perfection is really, first of all, it's not even attainable, but it's for the
Yeah.
birds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the one with the PR agency here
Yeah.
working overtime,
Yeah. That's the agency of let's stay a hot mess,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Who wants to be part of that?
I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're almost out of time, Sarah. So I have a couple quick, short questions. We have to wrap up because we could just keep talking. But
Oh, we could.
I know we
Yeah.
could. Yeah, maybe we'll have to come back again. If you could leave us with one piece of advice about the flip side of failing, what would it be?
You have already succeeded. You just don't know what it is yet.
How
Mhm.
could I get to know it?
Yeah. Well, you have to be curious enough to explore it. You know, if you've got people listening to your podcast and they think, oh man, I really wish that I could have a home-based business where I get a chance to bring people into my home and paint nails for when my kids are sleeping, and that's what I get a chance to do. Well, maybe you've already succeeded. You have the vision. You know exactly what you want to do. You know what supplies you need. You know where you're going to do it. You know who your clients would be. You've already succeeded because you know exactly what you want. You just haven't done it yet.
Okay,
So
you explore it. You got to explore it. You got to take first
yeah,
step in action.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Love it. Speaking of nail color, if
Hmm.
you could create a nail color name that any of us could use to inspire us to embrace this new way of thinking about failure, what would that name be?
Mm, failure goddess. The literature on women's advancement is that we put our head down, we work hard, and we expect to get noticed. So you need to just put yourself out there, whether that is you paint that weird and wacky color and it becomes a conversation piece,
Mm-hmm.
or you just say, you know what, I'm going to do it. It's probably not going to work, but I would like funding to try it anyway. I would like a secondment to be able to do it. I'm going to start this side hustle business, and it may not cost me, it may cost me money and it not go anywhere, but I'm going to do it because I'm just so freaking sick of thinking about it and not doing it. That now feels like a bigger failure than if I lose money doing it and it takes extra time. So just, wear your failure goddess nail polish proudly and say, oh yeah, I'm up here failing over here. And you may not like the color of my nail polish, but it is mine.
Yeah.
And I am doing this. It is original failure art on my nails, and I'm doing this.
I love it. I love it. All right, Sarah. I bet
Hmm.
there's some gals listening who are like, how can I get more Sarah? How do I get in touch with her? What's the best way people can contact you or find out more about all what you're up to? Because you're up to a lot of great stuff.
Thank you. Greatnessmagnified.com is my website. So come on over. It has just had a huge overhaul. So I can't promise any nail colors, but there's lots of colors for sure.
Yes, I can attest to that.
And of course, LinkedIn would love to. I love it when I have an opportunity for people to share with me a key insight that they've taken away from a podcast. So connect with you on LinkedIn and send me a note that says what was your juicy nugget you took? That will be the biggest compliment I will receive that day when you share that.
Okay, I'm going to put all the links, one to your website and two to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And do it, gals. Go ahead and link up with Sarah on LinkedIn and tell her, hey, I listened to you on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Here's the juicy thing that I got. That is a gift we can give back to her. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been so much fun. And I love that you just this whole topic of, I talk about flip the chip, and you talk when I saw that you wrote the book of about the flip side of failing, I'm like, I knew we were up to like minds, and this was just more evidence. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure.
Today's podcast was all about flipping the chip on failure. So for this flip the chip segment, I want to take so many of the ideas that Sarah shared and put them into the new TRY formula that she was inspired to create while on this podcast. All right. So first it's the T. T stands for truth. You have to know your truth. You have to know what's important to you and get excited about it. R stands for recognition. Recognize the gifts, the strengths, the assets, and the resources you already have and believe in them. Y stands for yes. You have to say yes and choose to take the first step. I love when she said, start with a low bar when it's something new and focus on progress, not perfection. She also added these 3 words of encouragement as we continued our conversation. The first one was to try requires betting on yourself. So often we bet on other people or education or fill in the blank when we know ourselves the best. She also said that to try means believing you've already succeeded. You just have to start exploring this new thing. It's kind of like, uncovering something that's already there. And you're like, okay, let's unearth it. She also said to try includes surrounding yourself with others who are failure resilient. Because with community, you can go farther faster. And my additional tip, let your nail color cheer you on. Of course, I was going to say that. Put on a new color and give it the name Failure Goddess, like Sarah suggested. That way, every time you see your fingers or toes, you're reminded that failure is simply trying. And as you keep trying, you are experiencing the wonderful, juicy flip side of failing called growth and success. Oh, yeah, you can make good choices to create the career, the business, and life you want. One step, one nail color at a time. Look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at livelikeyurnailcolor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.